Nada Taufik reporting. Ireland has another referendum coming after the very controversial but in the end very successful campaign to remove the constitutional ban on abortion a few weeks ago. Now there's a referendum on blasphemy. There is in the constitution a blasphemy law. One of the most famous cases of somebody falling foul of that, the British comedian and writer Stephen Fry. In an interview on the TV channel in Ireland, RTE, 3 years ago, he said some things that got him investigated by the Irish police.
Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world which is so full of injustice and pain?
Well, that's a question a lot of people ask. The police dropped the case in 2017. We can speak to Michael Nugent, who's chair of Atheist Ireland, who's campaigned against the law since it was put into force. You've been campaigning since 2010. Actually, the churches agree with you, don't they, Michael? This is not an atheist versus God thing. The churches think also that this is out of date.
Indeed, and most churches are quite happy to be able to criticise the religious beliefs of other churches. And at least in Ireland, most churches recognise that their own beliefs have to be open to criticism as well. One of the dangers of this law is that it is used internationally by Islamic states of the United Nations to bolster support politically for their blasphemy laws, which they use to persecute religious minorities. And they're always happy to point to what they call as the hypocrisy of Western states, telling them to stop doing that while having blasphemy laws on our own books.
And you need to do a bit more research then. Here's the Evangelical Alliance Ireland. Nick Park, here's a quote from him. Christians who get upset about others blaspheming their God are missing the entire point of the gospel. The Bible tells us the very reason Jesus came to earth was to be blasphemed. So how did this law get there in the first place, Michael?
Well, we have a clause in our constitution, which is very anachronistic. It's from the 1930s, saying that blasphemy is an offence that will be punishable in accordance with law. When it was put into the law in the 1960s, the only time that it was tested, it was found to be unenforceable because it didn't define what the offence consisted of. And then a few years ago, the entire Defamation Act within which that resided was being updated. Everyone assumed that the government would take the opportunity to remove the blasphemy law. Instead, they put in a definition of it in order to make it enforceable.
So what's coming next? When will the referendum be held? I think we can assume that if the churches also think that this is obsolete, this piece of legislation, then it won't take much effort to get it overturned.
Well, you'd like to think so. You can never be complacent, though, with referendums. Who knows what people will think. But I mean, I think most people recognise that it's an anachronistic law, that it's a dangerous law, and that it should be gone. The referendum is planned for October to coincide with our coming presidential election.
And meanwhile, there are issues surrounding the change in Irish society concerning the role of especially the Roman Catholic Church. How is that working out? It's clear that the Catholic Church is involved in education, it's involved in healthcare in many ways. How is that changing?
Well, Ireland used to be a Catholic country, and a lot of people still think that it is. It's moved on. Ireland is now a pluralist country, but still with Catholic laws. So the Catholic Church doesn't have the control over the people that it used to have, but it still has laws in place that it put in place when it did have that control that we're gradually dismantling. The abortion one has gone. Hopefully the blasphemy law will go. They still control 90% of our primary schools, and they still have exemptions from our equality laws that allow them to discriminate on the grounds of religion against students and against teachers and against parents. So they also have religious oaths for president and judges and prime minister. So there's quite a lot still to be taken out of the law in order to get the law and the politicians to catch up with the people.
Michael, thank you very much indeed. Michael Nugent, who's from Atheist Ireland. We're still